is a lawyer specializing in U.S. constitutional law. Bruce, it's always good to speak to you. So are we likely now to see Trump's hush money case dismissed in the coming months, or will this simply be a delay until that sentencing in September?
Yasmin, thank you for having me on. And that's a great question because it does go to the heart of the issue. What I think we're seeing are the cards starting to fall. What happened is the Supreme Court, and I think correctly so, many commentators are saying this is the first time in history that the Supreme Court said that presidents have immunities that normal citizens do not. And that's just absolutely not true. What this opinion does is it sets forth three categories of presidential acts and provides immunities for them. First of all, there are the core presidential actions. Those are the ones that the Constitution mandates, treaties, negotiating treaties, picking ambassadors, justices, Supreme Court justices. Those are absolutely immune, no question. Then there's official acts. That's the second category. The official acts are presumed to be immune, although an argument can be made that they're not. And then the third category is the unofficial acts, and those are not immune at all. So what's happening here is in the hush money case, there was a great deal of evidence that was brought in about what President Trump did after he was president in relation to these alleged activities, which of course they still never got around to showing that there was a felony or that there was really a crime. So specifically, if you want to focus on the Hope Hicks testimony, all her testimony was what she did on a day-to-day basis with President Trump as a presidential advisor. Those would likely fall into the category of official acts. So if they were official actions, that testimony cannot be introduced to prove a crime or an alleged crime because they're immune. So that would make the jury verdict would wipe it out completely, and there'd have to be at minimum a new trial. So that's what we're seeing, and now it looks like there may be a sentencing in September, but I don't think so. I think if Judge Marchand goes ahead and rules that there's no immunity, he's not capable of making that decision. It's going to get appealed. So I think there's a chance that it may go away.
Okay, that's really interesting, Bruce. You've laid those three categories from the Supreme Court ruling out so well for us. Now, taking into consideration those categories, how does that affect Trump's other legal matters? Because of course, there are 4 cases against him, and those legal matters, whether they be federal or state, will they be impacted by the Supreme Court decision?
Oh, certainly they're going to be implicated and impacted greatly. The Georgia case is somewhat murky, but I think that the only way you can prove that President Trump knowingly interfered with the election law in Georgia were things that he did as president and may have been official acts. As the president, he has the obligation, the duty, and the right to ensure fairness, electoral fairness, as the commander-in-chief, as the president. So that may be difficult. As far as the Judge Eileen Cannon case down in Florida, the presidential documents case, I think there's no question that's going to be implicated, directly implicated. And finally, Judge Chutkan's case here in D.C., the kind of quasi-murky January the 7th or January 6th issues, that was the case where this decision arose. So there's certainly going to be the judge is going to have to set forth what is and isn't official and is and isn't core constitution. And she's only going to be able to allow testimony, a trial based upon unofficial acts. And that's going to be subject to an appeal. And it's sort of new territory here. I don't think there's any question, but they're all going to be directly influenced and impacted by this Supreme Court decision.
And that Supreme Court decision only coming out, of course, on Monday, but so much comment about it. And one of the justices, Sotomayor, called it a mockery. She said it makes the president a, quote, king above the law. What do you make of those comments?
Well, I think Judge Sotomayor is a very bright justice, but I think she sometimes forgets what a justice does. I think she wants to drive home her point and her agenda. She clearly forgot when she went to law school and read about the Nixon case. She clearly forgot when she read about Eisenhower's case. She forgot about the Youngstown sheet and tube. And she forgot about the President Clinton cases, where the issues of presidential immunity were discussed with some seriousness And she acts like there's no such thing as presidential immunity. But of course, there always has been presidential immunity. And all this decision does is lays out guidelines. And that's what the Supreme Court is supposed to do. It is not supposed to make the law. It isn't even really supposed to pronounce the law. It's supposed to help courts decide how to decide cases as they relate to the law. And that's all this decision does. And it does a good job of doing it. Of course, the people that are against President Trump don't like it. They would have liked to have said, oh, there's no such thing as presidential immunity, but there always has been presidential immunity since the very first days of the Supreme Court and at the birth of this nation.
Bruce DelValle, always good to get your analysis and your explanations. Thank you so much. Speaking to us there from the U.S. Capitol.